Buckle up, because a GOP congressman went on CNN to explain why free lunch for kids in school is actually bad, both for them and for America. Take a look.
When you talk about school lunches, hey, I worked my way through high school. I don't know about you, but I worked since I was, before I was even 13 years old. I was picking berries in the field before we had child labor laws that precluded that. I was a paper boy. And when I was in high school, I worked my entire way through. You're telling me that kids who stay at home, instead of going to work at Burger King and McDonald's during the summer, should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work? I think we need to have a top-down review.
Think about where kids need to actually be. I would say that's not necessarily a fair assessment of all of the kids. So you would say all the kids in your district who use the free lunch, for example, or breakfast, they're all just sitting at home and not working. Okay, I just want to clarify, because that seems like what you were trying to insinuate.
This gives us a chance. No, This gives us a chance, though, to see where is the money really being spent. Who can actually go and actually produce their own income? Who can actually go out there and do something that makes them have value and work skills for the future? I mean, how many people got their start in fast food restaurants when they were kids versus just giving a blanket rule that gives all kids lunches in high school who are capable of going out and actually getting a job and doing something that makes them have value, thinking about their future instead of thinking about how they're going to sponge off the government when they don't need to.
Okay, he literally describes kids whose families are so utterly poor that their basically only chance of having lunch when they're at the school is for these subsidies as being future sponges on the government. That's what a guy whose first name is literally Rich said about them. Now, there's a lot of issues with that, including with his personal history, where he seemed to imply that he started working in this country before child labor laws were instituted. And I Googled it, and it was back in the 30s. Maybe he's just got a great skincare regimen, but I don't think he's being totally honest there. And by the way, let me say, I worked a ton of jobs when I was in school, all throughout high school and even before high school. I worked catering jobs and I worked as a busboy and all of that. And you know what? I still think kids need to eat. And if their families can't afford it, they should get free or reduced cost lunches. That's what they should get. Bear in mind, he was brought on that interview to sort of explain why it's acceptable that all this chaos has come from the funding freeze. And this was his attempted diversion. If you watch the full interview, you'll quickly realize that this guy is not all that clever necessarily. But this is what he came up with. And I want you to remember the argument he just made for why we desperately need to cut these programs because we can't afford it, in about a month or so, when he votes for the extension of the Trump tax cuts and thereby hands trillions of dollars to the richest people in the country. He's gonna be perfectly fine with that. There will always be money for that. Money for your kids to eat, not necessarily, despite the fact that that investment, and I will call it that, is very much an investment with a return for our country. And so research is clear. Not only do schools that provide meals through these sorts of programs end up providing, achieving both better health and food security. That should not come as a surprise. When kids are eating, they tend to be in better health. They also have improved performance at school, improved test scores, no negative impacts on weight or BMI. And I personally believe, maybe I'm crazy, I'm not a doctor like he apparently is, despite having generated no empathy whatsoever in his life for kids who are struggling, that kids going to school and having better grades and having better health is better for our country, better for the economy, better for our society. I don't think that I need to explain that a lot. It should be pretty clear and also necessary, because childhood poverty is actually up. It went from just 2021 and 2022 from 5.2% to 12.4%. Obviously, there was a lot of chaos coming out of the pandemic and all that, but there's more need for this right now. And to just put a capper on me calling him not particularly clever, he tried to make a point there that don't worry about, you didn't see it, it's in the full interview. Don't worry about the school lunch thing. Donald Trump is investing in what's important because he's putting $500 billion into AI infrastructure to cure cancer. So he said, don't worry about this cruelty that I'm defending here. Donald Trump is not putting forward any of that money. The federal government is not putting forward any of that money. Private industry is building a bunch of AI infrastructure. And one of the things in theory that I guess it could work on is something having to do with cancer. That's not why they're doing it. They're doing it to make money. And they were already gonna do it. They'd be doing it right now if Harris had been inaugurated a week ago. And so this guy either doesn't understand any of that or doesn't care if you do. He also, by the way, referenced how important it is for us to get JFK Jr. in charge of making America healthy again. So it's possible the guy is just a dummy. But Sharon, what do you think?
I'll go with dummy, sure, why not? But here's the thing. You're so right when you say this is an investment in us, our greater society. You learn better when you're not hungry. And let's not get it twisted. They're not James Beard award-winning chefs that are serving up kids' meals. It's some sustenance to keep them okay. Their brains need food to grow and be healthy. And what's his deal with it? Why is he so against children eating? Well, I don't think he is against children eating. I think he's against poor kids, black and brown kids eating. That's actually what it is. So I answered my own question. But all right, never mind. Just go with dummy. He's a dummy, okay?
100%. He also, I don't even understand the argument that he's trying to make. That like, if they're not working in the summer, they shouldn't eat during the school year. Like, no, they're not working shifts at McDonald's necessarily because they're in school. That's what they're doing. They might work like a night shift or whatever, but why are we doing qualifications for a crappy little lunch? Like they talk about America's back, new golden age. Does this feel like a golden age to you? That we have to like nickel and dime and flood with bureaucrats, you getting crappy school pizza? Like how petty are we? How small are we as a country that we can't afford to provide mashed potatoes and green beans to some kids who might be literally on the brink of starvation? That doesn't feel like a golden age. That feels like third world at best. And maybe that's the highest aspiration that's high. That's that they have. That's as high as they can reach or dream. But I personally expect more out of my country, and I think we all should. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?